So one of the interesting trends right now is the millennial generation is highly idealistic, and the number one priority for them, for us, as we're thinking about choosing our careers, is what type of impact are we having on our communities? That is the number one thing. And there are a lot of theories around why that is, but our generation has graduated off a cliff into historic unemployment, historic student loan debt, but are still highly idealistic. I think you combine those things together and you get the growth, really the explosion of social entrepreneurship among our generation. But as Jennifer just mentioned, nothing scales a solution like public policy. Nothing. And I mean, especially at the federal level, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. If you found a good solution, you should be testifying on the Hill, talking to the Future Caucus, and we want to find out how we can help you scale that. We just actually sponsored the Future Caucus, the first federal legislation on social impact bonds. And that's a great idea where you're going to leverage a lot of private capital into programs that were traditionally sponsored by the public and scale them across the country. And if they produce a return in terms of the in terms of the results they were prescribed to create, they'll get a return on investment. So that's the case that I would make now. We've seen a generation get into social entrepreneurship, but now we have to realize that if we really want to scale these solutions that we're doing in the private sector, we have to make sure our generation is engaging in public policy too.
Steve, given that, I'm curious, is there a brain drain then to Washington?
Well, I think there is. I think there is. So for a long time, there was an issue, I think some people would say, that the best and brightest of our generation was going into financial services and consulting and industries that some people would say aren't as, say, socially productive as working in public service or becoming an entrepreneur. But that's starting to change, and I think the financial collapse facilitated that transition. So I think there is unfortunately still brain drain in Congress, and I see it firsthand. I think people who have tremendous amount of expertise on a topic probably aren't becoming legislative aides to members of Congress. And that's something you have to change. I mean, the incentives aren't there. Pay is extremely low right now. The gridlock is obviously at historic levels. Brookings just did a study finding that the gridlock is the worst it's been in the past 20 years. It's doubled since the 1950s. So if you're a young, idealistic person and you want to make change, and you want to make change fast, Congress is probably not the place right now to do that. And that's obviously what we have to change, because our democracy is only as strong as the people who participate in it. And that's why we need to make sure we're creating pathways so our best and brightest are going into public service, including Congress and other legislative capacities.